Hello, my name is Cassandra Stubblefield, Consultant ID 83776, and today we will be talking about paparazzi, the compensation plan, and ranks. So we will get started. I'm doing this on my TV. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is PV. PV is personal volume, and each $5 item has 2 PV, and so that is going to matter when it comes to talking about ranks and being active and recruiting and stuff like that. So PV is personal volume, and each $5 piece has 2 PV. In order to be active for the month, you have to have 25 pieces, which is 50 PV. Okay, so those are terms that are all necessary to know with all this. Okay, so the first one is when you very first sign up, you are a consultant. Then as soon as you place your first order and you're active, you become a star consultant. That's all you have to do is place an order and be active, and you become a star consultant. You don't get anything with being a star consultant but the title. So as a star consultant, you start adding people under you, and you can add as many people as you want, but you will make 5% off of your first personalized sponsors, your first line. Once you get 3 active people under you, you become a director. So you could have 10 people under you and not become a director if you don't have 3 people active in any given calendar month. So if you have 10 people under you and at any given time you only have 1 or 2 of them active, you don't become a director until you have 3 active. So if you sign 3 people up in 1 month, you'll become a director because they are active when they sign up. So but with that, then you also get 10% on your first line when you become a director. So you go from a star consultant with 5% to a director getting 10%. Okay, the next one is Premier Director. With a Premier Director, you have to be active with 50 PV, you have to have 3 active consultants underneath of you, and you have to have 3,000 OV, which is organizational volume. OV means your personally sponsor becomes a leg, so anybody that is underneath of them becomes a leg, and the OV is specifically per leg. Okay, so this person here with their teammate is a leg, and so whatever their entire team makes would be OV for them. And then you've got a second leg here and then a third leg here with a couple people under it. So the OV is for that team, this team, and that team. So once you get 3,000 OV amongst your teams, then you become a Premier Director. With a Premier Director, there's a rule. There's a rule with this. I always forget about the rule. That's where things get kind of complicated. So there's a 1/3 rule when you become a Premier Director. The 1/3 rule means that you cannot have more than 1/3 of your OV per leg. So you need 3,000 OV to become a Premier Director, and that means that one leg, you cannot take more than 1,000 OV from one leg. They can have 7,000 OV for that one leg, but you can only use 1,000 of it. Okay, so this person here has 15 OV, 500, 500, you've added another person here, and you've got 500. So all together, they equal 3,000 OV, but because they have 1,500, you can only use 1,000 of that. So that brings you down to 2,500, and so then you wouldn't become a Premier Director. Now, if they had 1,500 and they had 1,500, then between them, if you take their 500s off, you have a 3,000, then you would make Premier Director. You just cannot take more than 1,000 of the OV from any single leg. They can't produce that. And then with this, you get 10% off your first leg, 5% off your second leg, and then 5% if you have a third leg once you become a Premier Director. The next rank is Executive Director. So with this Executive Director, you have to be active with 100 PV, you still have to have 3 active personally sponsored, and now you're up to 6,000 OV. So once you have 6,000 OV amongst your legs, again, then you become an Executive Director. And with that, you make 1% of your overall team plus the 10%, 5%, and 5%. That doesn't change any. But you get that extra 1% over the entire team. But with this, you still have the 1/3 rule. So with this one here, since we're doing 6,000 OV, 1/3 of 6,000 is 2,000, which means you cannot account for more than 2,000 from one leg. So here you've got 2,100 or 1,500, 500, 2,000. Together you equal 6,000. You're good because no one's over the 2,000 per leg, and so you become an executive director. So with the 1/3 rule, same thing applies. You cannot have more than 2,000. So if this team here combined have 3,000 PV and everyone else equals up to 6,000 PV, you can only use 2,000 of that. And so now it actually drops you down to 5,000 PV, which means you are no longer an executive director. You don't become an executive director. Now, if this person has 3,000 and this person has 2,000, and so you're only using 2,000 of this one, and then you have the 2,000 from here, so then you equal 7,000, then you have that 6,000 PV and you're good. Now, if that happens, you have 7,000 PV overall. Even though you can only use 6,000 to become an executive director, you still get 1% over the whole 7,000 OV. So that's a pretty good deal. Okay, the next one then is producer. So the producer is 100, you have to be active with 100 PV, 3 personally sponsored active, and now you're up to 12,000 OV. So again, each leg produces you OV, and then together, if you have 12,000, you become a producer. Now with that, you get 3% overall. So you jump from 1% to 3%. Now this here doesn't change any. You still get 10, 5, and 5, but now you're up to 3% for your overall team volume. However, there is still that 1/3 rule. So with your 12,000 OV, your 1/3 rule then brings you to 4,000 per leg. You cannot take more than 4,000 per leg. So in this case, this team here, which she's by herself, has 5,000 PV. You can only use 4,000 of that. So if together you have 12,000, but you can only use 4,000 of that, that drops you down to 11,000 PV. So you would not become a producer. But if she has 5,000 and they have 2,000, then you would go up to 13,000 PV minus their 1,000 that you can't use, brings you back to 12,000 PV, and you're golden. So with that, if you need any more information or you have any questions whatsoever, please visit my website, www.theblingaddict.com. And thank you for watching.